North Carolina's current lieutenant governor, a Republican named Mark Robinson, is running for governor. And that means there's gonna be some extra scrutiny. And take a look at what people have found when trolling through his past social media activity. Here's what he posted in the wake of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School mass shooting. Let me see if I have this correct. A spoiled, angry, disobedient child shot and killed 17 of his classmates. And now spoiled, angry, know-it-all children are trying to tell law-abiding adults that we must give up our constitutional right to own certain weapons. Cue Rod Serling, because this must be an episode of The Twilight Zone. David Hogg and the rest of these silly little immature media prostitutes need to grab a passy, have seat and time out, and shut up. The very ideology of conservatism that your liberal mollycoddling string pullers have taught you to despise is exactly what you and your schools have desperately needed to prevent these massacres, as well as the multitude of failures that exist in public education. Look, substantively, the idea that what they need is a more conservative approach to gun regulation, and if they did that, the shooting wouldn't have happened, is ironic when they had a conservative approach to gun regulation and the shooting happened. But I also understand that it seems weird to focus on that when he called people who had just survived a mass shooting prostitutes. It's, by the way, a term that he likes. If we could jump ahead to graphic 3, he also tweeted out the term prostitutes. He was very impressed with himself when he came up with that. Brett, what do you think?
It's so weird that his photo is him looking so jovial and friendly in the little photo in the corner. If you go back to those graphics, any of his tweets, he's just like sitting in his minivan or his room like, hi, it's me, Mark Keith Robinson. Also, Mark Keith Robinson, with those 3 names, you sound like a serial killer, even if you're not, like talking about prostitutes. So weird. And that happens a lot, like in the Bud Light argument. The Bud Light, Dylan Reeves or whatever the name is, like that argument. What happened is I would watch people start off being like, this is terrible. They're marketing it to kids. No, they're not. It's beer, it's for grown-ups. But then suddenly they're talking about his like preteen breasts or like, the quote, his preteen breasts, all in the quote. It's like, you guys are the pervy weirdos.
You want an example of that?
Just watch their classmates get gunned down. And like you think this is a winner? You think this argument is a winner to go after the victims of a mass shooting because they're upset there was a mass shooting?
Well, Brett, it worked for Marjorie Greene.
Yeah, so, and did it?
So hold on, you brought up the perversion, so we have to go to this example. The guy who's calling these kids prostitutes also had a lot to say about Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. Take a look at this.
I really believe. Now, you and me both are students of history. When Joseph Stalin was in power, what did he create? He created a climate of what? A climate of fear. He arrested some of his top generals and top leaders. He threw them in the gulags. He executed them. Why do you think he did that? He did that so that the common man would be really afraid, because the common man would say, look, if he threw a general and a big shot in jail, he'll definitely crush me. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe, Chris, that is what the left is doing with the Harvey Weinstein, the Bill Cosbys, the Matt Lauers. They have picked out an elite group of people that have committed these so-called sexual crimes or whatever kind of crimes they've committed or offenses, and they have thrown those people underneath the bus, eating their own, to breed a spirit of fear in people, so people will be afraid to stand up and speak up and get involved.
So the guy who's talking about prostitutes thinks that Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Matt Lauer have committed so-called crimes. I would not leave him alone with school children, but that's just me. Brett, final thoughts, quick.
I mean, when you're on Politics and Prophecy, it's like, oh, you're a crazy person. Got it. All right, I understand. I love what was Harvey Weinstein trying to quote get involved with?
Nothing good.
Nothing
from what I remember. No.
People in his shower at the Peninsula Hotel. Just gross.
Absolutely gross. And equally gross, Mark Robinson could be the governor. Stay tuned to find out.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.